The book is Ali, A Life, and the author, Jonathan Eig, joins us on the podcast. I want to start where the book starts, in the beginning. You did an incredible job uncovering all sorts of new information, specifically about his family. We're talking about his family being 2 generations removed from slavery, a grandfather with a criminal past, a father who is abusive. But the family certainly wasn't destitute by the standards of that time. But here's a young kid growing up in the Jim Crow South and yet developing this confidence, this unapologetic personality. How did this foundation kind of start for him and the person that America and the world got to know?
That's really one of the central questions to understanding Ali. And I think it goes to understanding American history. You know, when I interviewed Dick Gregory for this book, he said to me, your book's not going to be worth a damn if you can't explain what made a kid from the Jim Crow South, same age as Emmett Till, think that he could talk back to white people and get away with it. Think that he could call himself the greatest when everybody around him was telling him he was a second-class citizen. You got to be able to understand that. What made Ali capable of that? And it's a really difficult question. I mean, it's really complicated. Part of it is that he grows up in not the deep South. Louisville thinks of itself as more progressive. There are some opportunities that wouldn't be available to him anywhere else. For example, to walk into a boxing gym at age 12 and to have a white cop offer to help him and to be able to get in the ring and mix it up with white kids. That didn't happen in Alabama or Mississippi, but it did happen in Louisville. And so all of these subtle things, and the fact that his father was really, a fighter, not in the boxing sense, but just somebody who didn't think that we should have to take the conditions that we were born into because of this racist country that we live in. So Ali has all of these influences swirling around him, and then he finds out about the Nation of Islam when he's 13, 14 years old, and that really has a huge impact too. So you can't pin it on any one thing, but it's so complicated that it's beautiful, really.
I have always thought in going back and starting whatever readings, going all the way back to high school, that no matter who you were, even if you're having a hard time as a white person today in the country, being like, all right, why are we talking about race every single day? All right, and maybe there's a point, but if you're Muhammad Ali at that time, Cassius Clay, and you go to Rome, win the gold medal, you're treated like a hero, and then you come back home and you're like, wait, like I'm going to get treated like shit again? And then the first time you pick up any literature on the Nation of Islam and you start hearing for the first time in your life, Black people talking about other Black people in a positive way and asking questions, how impressionable Ali must have been at that time. Like anybody that would go, I can't believe he went Nation of Islam. I can't believe he has these beliefs. I can't believe he went down that road. I don't know why anybody could be dismissive, at least, of the idea of a young person at that time looking at his surroundings, asking a lot of questions and wondering why things were the way they were.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And remember what it felt like to be 18 and to want to challenge authority every chance you got. And to go over there, win the gold medal, come back, be treated like a second-class citizen, and hear Elijah Muhammad and hear Malcolm X saying, we don't have to do it the way they want us to. We don't even have to do it the way Martin Luther King wants us to. We can fight on our own terms. And that really appeals, I think, also to the same sense that makes Ali love boxing. We can do it on our own. We don't have to be a part of a team. We don't have to play by anybody's rules. We can make our own rules. I think that's really attractive to an 18-year-old championship boxer who's African-American at a time when, Jim Crow laws are still in effect all over the South.
So let's get deeper into it then. So he's got this group of businessmen that invest in him from Louisville, and it sounds like they fast-tracked him. What I love in this book, too, is every time Angelo Dundee, his longtime trainer, is mentioned, it's almost like Dundee's right all the time. Like he's just right about everything like all the time.
Yeah.
And they wanted him fighting Sonny Liston there. And it felt like they were rushing this because no one really thought he was that good, right?
Absolutely. Ali thinks he's that good. Ali thinks he's ready. But Dundee's job is to make sure he doesn't, blow it too soon by putting him in the ring with somebody he can't beat. Because then, your career's over and you go back to the to the B League. And Dundee is really holding the reins and trying to keep this guy in check a little bit. But Ali thinks he can beat anybody, even Sonny Liston, who nobody thinks they can beat. And in that way, Dundee is the perfect trainer for Ali, because he's able to just appreciate this kid's ego and work with it without letting his own ego get stepped on at all.
So he beats Liston the first time, and now what did you get to see? Like, I have my own opinion on it here, but the Nation of Islam understood that if we're attaching ourselves to now this famous boxer who has a real high ceiling here, how did you see the motivations behind that relationship? Not from Ali's side, but from the Nation.
It's messy. They really kept their distance from him because they thought he was going to lose to Liston in that first fight. So why?
Right. They told everybody, like, don't go down, or did they tell Malcolm X to
Malcolm
leave?
went down anyway, because Malcolm by that point was on the outs with Elijah Muhammad and was doing whatever he wanted. But Elijah Muhammad told his newspaper, Muhammad Speaks, not to cover the fight, not to pay any attention to Ali, because we don't pay attention to sports. It's not serious. It has nothing to do with religion. And he's going to lose anyway. So why would we want to advertise the fact that this loser is a Muslim? And then he wins, and everything changes. And suddenly Elijah Muhammad, sees dollar signs. This kid's going to sell newspapers. He's going to bring in new recruits. He's going to be a voice bigger than Elijah Muhammad, bigger than Malcolm X's voice. He's going to have outreach to the world. So now suddenly Elijah Muhammad sees a huge opportunity here and has to make sure that he doesn't let Malcolm X get in the way. So this becomes a real serious battle, one of the really difficult conflicts in Ali's life. Does he go with Malcolm or does he go with Elijah?
And why do you think he went with Elijah?
I think he was in awe and a little bit scared of Elijah Muhammad. He thought of him as a god, almost certainly as a prophet, and that he was fascinated by this tiny little man with his squeaky little voice had so much power and spoke to God, and but he loved Malcolm too. I think in a way he was probably afraid of what would happen if he broke with Elijah Muhammad, and then he saw what happened to Malcolm. Soon after, Malcolm was assassinated, and most people felt like the Nation of Islam had some direct role to play in that, and that seemed to confirm all of Ali's fears.
The second Liston fight, is there more than what you were able to share in the book on just theories of what happened to this guy that was so feared? And look, he loses the first one, but the second one is the one everybody is like, okay, that was messed up. And did somebody bet? Did his own guys bet against him? What were you able to uncover in that, which so many people have said is a dive, although I've seen Ali break down the film of it, and if you go like frame by frame, you see this like magical punch that actually does take him out. But it just depends. I mean, I've been hearing about it since I was a kid, so
yeah,
I love that part.
I don't know if we're ever going to know. There was a punch. Didn't look like a knockout punch to me at all. And Sonny Liston could take a punch. Sonny Liston had taken plenty of much tougher punches than that. It looks to me like he's flopping down there. Even the way he's rolling around on the mat just looks like bad acting. So I think he threw that fight, but that's just my gut. I was never able to prove it. The best evidence I found was an interview that never aired, a TV interview with Liston's wife, where she said he had diarrhea, and he just once he got in the ring, he was like, I got to get this over with as fast as I can.
A new theory
not as sexy as the Nation of Islam assassins or the mafia assassins.
Okay, so he wins that fight, and now this is where the Vietnam storyline comes in. I know the first time through I was confused. I was like, so what happened? My father would explain it to me. He was in college at the time. He was somebody that started in athletics, and by the time he was done with college, he was just a guy going to different war protests. Not that he just, that was kind of how I always learned about Ali. It was through my father, and he would just be like, no, you got to understand, like, even though there were so many people that hated him, there was a younger generation of people that were also white that looked at him as like, hey, this guy's a hero because we share his vision or his voice on the war, and an unpopular war as time went by. At first he failed, right, his entry, and then was reclassified, which he kind of used. But then those who would say, okay, he was this complete draft dodging coward, he was offered the idea of just doing these boxing exhibitions where he was never actually going to have to fight. And now maybe he didn't necessarily believe that, but I think he could have. And there was a case I think you make in the book where he had he had thought maybe I just go ahead and do that because in this case, I'm going to lose my career. I could end up in jail. I could have all of these fines. So help me sift through all of that. I know I threw a lot at you, Jonathan, so I apologize, but I'm just kind of trying to share the timeline with younger listeners that may not know the details.
No, it's really, in some ways, the most important moment in Ali's life. You know, he has to decide what he really believes in. And, he's the heavyweight champion. He's got millions of dollars in money-making opportunities lined up, endorsements from all kinds of big products, not to mention the fights that are coming in. And he's got to make a choice. You know, how much does he really believe in this religion that he's only been, publicly associated with for a couple of years? And at first it's interesting because at first he says, well, I just don't want to fight, like send somebody else there. I got no problem with the war, but I just don't let somebody else fight it. And then he starts to say, well, it is screwed up. Why are all these black people being sent over there to fight when we're not even allowed to vote here in this country in a lot of places? Why should they treat us like second-class citizens over here and then expect us to go over to Asia and kill some other dark-skinned people? And then it's evolving. And this is, I think, a normal human process. It's evolving. And then he starts to say, it's also against my religion. My religion teaches us that we don't fight in secular wars. So that's ultimately what he goes to court on. And he's convicted. He's sentenced to jail. And he doesn't know that it's only going to be for 3.5 years. He thinks that it's permanent. He's never going to fight again. And he's willing to take that step. He says, I'll face a firing squad before I'll go against Elijah Muhammad and disobey the rules of my religion. That's faith. That's commitment. There's no other way to explain it.